going on, guys? Cole here. So I am currently at Jumpmaster school, and I wanted to kind of start making like a vlog video on hopefully I can make a video on how to pass Jumpmaster school, but I don't know that I'm gonna pass. This is definitely the hardest and most stressful school that I've gone through so far. Just talking through where I'm at in the course and what I've done so far is the nomenclature test, the pre-jump test, and then just today I just finished. It's 7 o'clock in the morning, and I just finished my written test. If I had to give any advice so far, I got a 100% on my nomenclature, and I got a 96% on my pre-jump. You absolutely have to start studying nomenclature and pre-jump before you get to Jumpmaster. Using the Jumpmaster app is phenomenal for nomenclature, and it's helpful with a lot of other stuff too. But pre-jump, you need to get the packet from your schoolhouse and your schoolhouse notes, which should be emailed to you, and study that pre-jump that they sent you, because there's a few different versions out there that have come out over the years, and you don't want to study the wrong one and make habits that are going to get you docked points when you're actually testing at the course. So get the one that your Jumpmaster school sent you, study that one, and you need to start studying probably like a week to 2 weeks in advance. I started studying about a week in advance, and my pre-jump test was like day 4 or day 5. No, it's day 4. It was day 4. And I still hadn't finished memorizing everything until the night before my pre-jump test. So the few points that I got docked actually were from like the last few paragraphs, which I finished studying the night before. So definitely work on pre-jump well before, like start that a week to 2 weeks out before you even show up to Jumpmaster. Nomenclature, I didn't start studying nomenclature until the day before I got here, and the test was either day 2 or day 3, and I got a 100. So right now, I'm currently waiting. Like I have to go back to class at 8, and then I'm going to find out whether or not I passed my written test, and I don't know. So I feel like I probably passed it, but I feel like I might not have passed it, so I guess we'll find out. So if I passed it, then maybe in the next clip I'll give some advice on what to study, but that's where we're at so far. What's going on, guys? Sorry for the shaky camera. So on to another day. So I ended up passing my written test. Like from the last video, I just finished taking it. It's been a few days since then, like 3 days. And I ended up passing it with just a high enough score to keep re-entry, and I'll talk about that in a second. So just for some background, like I'm currently going through the National Guard's Warrior Training Center Mobile Training Team Jumpmaster course. So it's a group of active Guard Reserve guys, so full-time National Guard guys that work out of the Warrior Training Center on Fort Benning, and they're all like instructors or support personnel for the schools. So I'm down in Florida, and I'm at a local National Guard Regional Training Institute, staying in their barracks, going to their classrooms, and it's a really nice setup. I don't know that every mobile training team is going to be like this, but I have nothing to complain about, like living conditions wise. The food is just fine, and the living conditions, I'm basically in a hotel. And some background on Jumpmaster school. So what kind of our day-to-day is. First of all, the Warrior Training Center instructors are awesome. I went to Air Assault through the WTC, and now I'm at Jumpmaster through the WTC, and the instructors are always awesome. They're typically very laid back. They're only like mean when they have to be, but Jumpmaster and Air Assault are two very different climates or like environments when you go to the school, and that's just the nature of the course itself. So Air Assault School, they try to make it more physically stressful, and you get like smoked and stuff like that. And in Jumpmaster School, it's not that at all. There's no PT. PTs aren't even on the packing list. You can work out if you want, but you'd probably be more better served spending your free time studying, either by yourself or with other people or both. And yeah, so as of right now, I am past the written test. And just so you guys know, the way that things kind of go in Jumpmaster School is you show up and you do nomenclature test first, then your pre-jump test, then your written test, and then you have JMPI, or your Jumpmaster Personnel Inspection. And by the way, just a small tidbit, side note, I am in a 2-week version of the course, not a 3-week version. So basically on day 1, we went through the entire book, more or less. And then day 2 was still a little bit of classroom, but we started doing JMPI on day 2, I want to say. We started doing like the introduction into inspecting Hollywood jumpers. Day 3 was an introduction into JMPI on combat equipment jumpers. And then basically ever since then, we've been doing JMPIs in the morning and in the afternoon. And once like the pre-jump was done, then we kind of went in, we focused a little bit on like written test material, but most of the day was focused on JMPI. Now that the written test is behind us, it's literally all JMPI all day long. And today was my pre-test. So when you get to JMPI, you have a pre-test on one day, and then the next day you'll have your test, your retest, and if you maintain over an 80% in the class, you need a 70% to stay in the class or not fail anything. But if you maintain over an 80%, you get what are called re-entry. So what re-entry test opportunities. So on the third day of JMPI testing, if you maintained over an 80% on all of your graded events thus far, you will get re-entry and a re-entry retest. And it's basically just test opportunity 3 and 4. The pre-test, they don't count as a test, and they don't expect anybody to pass it either, so far as from what I've been told. So like as of right now, I have a class of 22 people. Most of the people in the class have maintained over an 80%, so they have re-entry, but there are a few guys that don't have re-entry, and today was the pre-test. So if you pass the pre-test, you pass JMPI, but they apparently rig up the pre-test to be extremely difficult. It's passable, but very difficult. And then it's kind of just to show you what the hardest version of this is. And then after that, apparently it gets a little easier. Like the straps aren't as tight, the deficiencies are a little easier to find, and there aren't as many major and minor deficiencies. So when you're doing a JMPI, if you miss one major deficiency, you automatically fail. If you miss more than 2 minor deficiencies, you automatically fail. If you break sequence at all, you automatically fail. If you use incorrect commands, like saying, hold squat, bend, arch your back, stuff like that. If you use improper commands, you automatically fail. If you use improper nomenclature, like chest strap misrouted around main lift web, but you say like chest strap routed is like running behind the left shoulder strap. Well, that's incorrect and you automatically fail. So the standard is extremely high. There's no deviation from the standard at all. The instructors are strict but fair. Like today in the pretest, every single person in my class absolutely bombed the pretest, even though this morning when we're doing JMPI circles for practice to warm up, we were all crushing it, absolutely crushing it. Most people were finding all the deficiencies. Instructors are watching us and saying, nobody's breaking sequence, you guys are all doing great, you're moving fast. And then we get into the pretest and everybody does terrible. And the instructors told us beforehand that nobody's going to pass. And I don't know exactly why that is, but I digress. So tomorrow is my test opportunity 1 and 2. The first one's in the morning, second one's in the afternoon. And then the next day, because I have re-entry, I get re-entry 1 and re-entry retest if I need them. Hopefully I just pass my first try tomorrow and I won't have to worry about my re-entry opportunities. And I can just take the stress of passing JMPI off of my brain. JMPI is the hardest part. It is like what the guys in my unit were telling me is that if you fail it, if you get to JMPI and fail, at least that's a respectable place to fail. If you fail before that, it's not so much. But then if you get past JMPI, you're more or less going to graduate. There are still a few things that you could do to mess up and fail, but it's a lot less likely. Like the attrition rate of JMPI is way higher than any other part of the course. And that's just because the sequence and the standard is so strict. So what I'm doing right now, it's like 10 o'clock at night, I think, and I'm just studying nomenclature. I already know all the nomenclature, but studying it more helps it come to your brain, because when you're doing your JMPI, if you run across a deficiency, you have to call that deficiency by nomenclature, and everything has to be correct. So the more that you study it, if I was to give a tip, the more that you study it, the easier that you can think about it as you're doing your inspection. And if you know the nomenclature really well, you can continue your inspection with really no problem. But if you don't know nomenclature, a lot of times you'll slow down to try and think about what the words are, and that costs you time. So the standards, by the way, are you have to inspect 3 jumpers in 5 minutes, not 5 minutes each. You have to do 3 JMPIs in less than 5 minutes. 1 is a combat equipment jumper, and 2 are Hollywood jumpers. And again, you have 5 minutes with perfect sequence, perfect nomenclature, and you can't miss more than 2 minor deficiencies. A major deficiency is what would be considered life-threatening. A minor deficiency could cause jumper injury or could cause discomfort to the jumper. So you can miss 2 of those and still be fine. But hope you don't want to miss any of them. And so when you get to Jumpmaster school, and like I said, I'm still in the course, obviously. I haven't graduated, so I can't give you all the wisdom of how to pass. But I can tell you what has helped me improve just since I've been here. So when you first start out and you're first learning your sequence, they're timing you at like 3 minutes to do a Hollywood jumper. And I wasn't even finishing a Hollywood jumper at 3 minutes. And a week later, most of us are able to do Hollywood jumpers in 1:30 or less, which is extremely fast. You're cooking. And that's going through the inspection while also calling deficiencies and not missing anything. Most of the time I'll go and be able to actually find all the deficiencies and call them out properly. I might just be a little slow on time by a few seconds, and that's fine. You should really just focus on your sequence. Like the book even says right here, do not sacrifice your sequence for speed, because you can make up your speed in certain areas, but if you mess up your sequence at all, you automatically fail. So it's pretty stressful. So another tactic is doing shadow boxing, so ghost jumpers as they call it, where you're just in your room going through the motions of conducting a JMPI. And that's another thing that helped me, because the other day I wasn't even close to meeting the standard, which per the time, you have 5 minutes, 3 jumpers, 1's a combat, 2 are Hollywood. You have 2 minutes to inspect that combat equipment jumper and 1.5 minutes to inspect those Hollywood jumpers. So that's kind of the bar that we're at right now. And they've even gone below that to where it's like 1:15, and they're calling time for Hollywood jumpers and 1:45 for combat equipment jumpers. And most of us are right there about to meet that mark. But the other day when they had the stopwatch just set for 2 minutes, and then they'd call time and you'd have to stop, I wasn't even getting close. I still had about another 30 seconds of work to do. and then I just spent one night hitting nomenclature really hard and doing ghost jumpers, and the next day I was absolutely crushing it. I was finishing it like a minute 50, minute 55, and so it definitely helps. It actually does help. And so that's why tonight I'm just doing more ghost jumpers in my room, and I'm working on nomenclature more. And there are some guys that brought their own like dummy chutes from their units, and so they can train in the barracks and just drill it more and more and more. But that is what I can tell you so far has helped me to the point that I'm at right now, where tomorrow hopefully I can like make another video talking about how I passed JMPI, and then I'm smooth sailing pretty much to graduation. But we'll see. Stay tuned. Alright guys, so we got like 3 days left of the course. The point where I'm at now, I think where I was last time I made an update video was I was about to go into either the pre-test or the actual full test day. So I didn't pass my pre-test. I did not pass either the first test or the retest, but I did finally pass JMPI on the reentry retest, the 4th try. So I would have had it a 5th try, but it doesn't sound like anybody passed on that 5th try. If you didn't make it on the 4th one, you weren't gonna make it on the 5th one is how it sounds. So tips for JMPI in Jumpmaster school. I mean, you're gonna do so many JMPI circles, like you're going to be at the point where by the time you actually do your testing, you will know the sequence, you will know the time standard, and you'll probably be hitting the time standard. If not, you'll be extremely close, and you'll know all of the deficiencies. So it's really just, when it comes to the test, it's all about execution, and some of that's luck. My first 3 tests, the pre-test, the test, and the retest, I completely bombed out. Like, my brain was saying, like my mouth was saying words that weren't even deficiencies. I was calling deficiencies out. Like, I would find a deficiency and I would know what it was, and I would just say something that was totally different and move on, and it's almost like I couldn't hear myself saying the wrong thing, so I never corrected myself. So I never made time. I never got off the first jumper, like in the classroom, in the practices, and when we were doing test condition practice, which is they set up all 3 jumpers, and then you have a Jumpmaster there that's timing you, and then they kind of give you tips on your sequence and what deficiencies you missed and stuff. I would always do pretty good on the test conditions, but I never made time. And then when it came to the tests, I never even made it past the first jumper. Apparently, like, my sequence was awful, and I would, like I said, I would legitimately fail and say the wrong things, or I wouldn't find all the deficiencies on the first jumper. But then on this last one, I actually finally got through all of them, and I finished it at 4 minutes and 58 seconds. I found all the deficiencies. I had no sequence violations, and I made it in 4:58. So it's like I can't really give the advice that you should just be calm and that you're gonna be okay. I would just say, like, you can still do it. I kind of was feeling like I was probably going to go home today because I hadn't made it past the first jumper on any of the tests. So it's kind of like, man, this isn't looking good. And I hadn't been close. I had been close on time, but you know, so many things have to go right in the JMPI test for you to pass it. There's so much luck involved. Your grader can be more lenient, or they can be extremely strict. You have to be perfect. That execution has to be there, and there is a lot of luck involved in that. So JMPI is hard, and I don't understand why it's hard. It's not a realistic test at all. It's like they just made the standards extremely high just to increase difficulty. I don't know why they did that, but like you're never going to JMPI 3 jumpers in 5 minutes in the real world for a real airborne operation, because there's too much risk involved. You're sacrificing safety for speed, and that's not going to happen. Like, if you're a good jump master, you won't do that. You'll take as much time as you need to conduct a thorough inspection. And I've heard people say, well, what about an in-flight rig? Well, what you learn in Jumpmaster school is that per the book, you don't ever do an in-flight rig unless you have a flight longer than 4 hours. So you also, depending on how many jumpers you have or which aircraft you're on and what type of jump you're conducting, you have to have a minimum of a certain amount of jump masters that would be able to lighten the load. No single jump master is ever going to have to conduct a combat equipped jumper and conducting a JMPI on that guy in 2 minutes. It'll never happen. So I don't understand why. And they allow you to miss up to 2 minor deficiencies in the JMPI test here. This is just my opinion, my own personal opinion. I feel like it would be better if you had more time to inspect your jumpers in Jumpmaster school, but you couldn't miss anything, because then you're not sacrificing safety for speed. You're emphasizing safety. Hey, we're giving you the amount of time that you need to find everything. So if you can't find anything, then that is on you, and that shows your lack of ability to conduct this inspection. But just making it 5 minutes for 3 jumpers is like ridiculous. It's unbelievable. That will probably be the only time that I ever do a sub 5 minute JMPI test like that for the rest of my life. But I still got more stuff to go in this school. So it is Tuesday and graduation is Friday. So we still have practical work in the aircraft and safety testing to do. So, there's still more to do. There's still very easy things to mess up and fail, but generally speaking, from what I've been told, they are easier to pass than any of the other tests that you take in Jumpmaster school. So that's pretty much the update. Good news, passed the JMPI test, and I'm moving on to the last few bits of testing for Jumpmaster. All right, well, I guess this will be my conclusion to my Jumpmaster little vlog series. So I think the last one that I did was before my JMPI inspection. I can't remember. It's like 6:30 in the morning on graduation day. So I ended up passing JMPI on my re-entry. So my 4th attempt out of 5. And everything from down there is pretty easy. For this consolidated course, we did PWAC the day after our re-entry tests, and the day after that we did safety duties, and then that was yesterday, and then today's graduation. So by far the most stressful part of this course is JMPI, and each part kind of gradually, it's like a bell curve, right? Like, it gradually gets a little bit more stressful. Like, nomenclature is easy, and then you go to pre-jump, which is a little harder because it's just so much to memorize. And then it goes to the written test, and the written test, there's so much material, and you don't know what the questions are going to be over, so you have to like study a little bit of everything. So that's stressful. And then JMPI is like the max, and especially for me, I didn't get through my first jumper until my 4th attempt, so I was extremely discouraged and kind of had gotten to a point of almost acceptance that I just wasn't going to pass because the JMPI test is just that hard. And then somehow I passed. And then after that, it all drops off. Everything gradually gets easier. The PWAC test is somewhat stressful because you're in the aircraft. It's the first time you're actually doing like hanging out the parachute door and stuff, and the stress is just raised because it's live. Like, people could actually get hurt if you mess something up, so they take it really seriously. And then after that, we did the safety test just at a mock door. So, and that was the easiest and fastest test that we had this entire time. So, yeah, but today's graduation this morning at like 9 a.m. And then I got to catch a flight back to Indiana at like 5 p.m. So, the 2-week consolidated Jumpmaster course was a lot, but somehow was able to make it happen. And the Warrior Training Center cadre are just, this is my second course. I went through air assault with the Warrior Training Center, the National Guard guys out of Fort Benning. Now I've been a Jumpmaster, and then now it's Friday, and I report to Pathfinder on Thursday with the Warrior Training Center. So anytime that I'm going to a course where it's ran by the WTC, I feel like I'm in good hands with the instructors. They do a phenomenal job. But yeah, I'm just relieved that I passed everything, and I really did not want to come back to this course. The JMPI circles that you do are brutal. Like physically it's not too bad, but at least when you first start doing it, the first few days when you're like peeling the cuticles back on your fingers and you're literally bleeding and having to stop doing JMPI circles to go and wrap your fingers up because your fingers are all cut open and bleeding and stuff. And then you're putting glue in your cuticles to keep them from ripping open and taping your fingers up. Like that sucked. Being in the harness that much sucked, but you kind of get used to it though. Like after a while, I didn't even really have to glue my fingers up, and I didn't have to tape my fingers up, and being in the harness wasn't too big of a deal. So, but it sucked more than I thought it was going to. I've always heard that Jumpmaster school is like a gentleman's course, and then I get here and pretty much every day I'm sweating, because when you're going through JMPI circles, you're 3 minutes, or it starts at 3 minutes, and then they work it down to 2 minutes, and then they work it down to where you're trying to do Hollywood in 1.5 minutes. And I think they eventually work it down to you're trying to do Hollywood in 1 minute and 15 seconds and combat jumpers in 1 minute and 45 seconds. And so you're rushing so fast and trying to get all these deficiencies, and you're just going from one to the next, to the next, to the next. Like you get 1 minute 45 here, then you immediately rotate, and immediately 1 minute 45, then you rotate, and you back-to-back JMPIs as fast as you can. And so you're like soaked with sweat, and then when you're not doing that, you're wearing the harness. So for a gentleman's course, I was sweating a lot more in this course than I anticipated, but it is what it is. It's all over now. So my tips for this course would be, before getting here, be really good at your nomenclature and your pre-jump. And then once you get past those 2 tests, just focus solely on whatever the next task is. So when you get to your written test, just focus on JMPI during class if that's what you're doing. But just focus, when you're not in class, focus just on your written test. And then when you get past that, come back in your room and just do your shadow boxing and study your nomenclature, your deficiency nomenclature. And then once you get past that, work on your PWAC stuff, actually work on doing all the jump commands and everything. And then once you get past that, work on the safety stuff. Just take everything one test at a time, one day at a time, and don't study for something that is down the road from you. Just study the very next thing and just focus on that, and that's it. That's really the best advice that I can give anybody that's going to come to the Jumpmaster course. I feel like I learned a ton about airborne operations that I didn't know before, and I've only ever been in airborne units for the past 8 or 9 years, and I'm just excited to get back to my unit. And it's, like I said, it's Friday, and I have my first safety duty on Monday, so I'm excited to go and do that. So yeah, so there you go, guys. Jumpmaster School.